Hi, I'm Dan.
And I'm Jake, and we're both public high school teachers. Now, it's October. That means it's time for the MLB postseason and the World Series. In 2020, Major League Baseball finally decided that on the 100th anniversary of Negro League Baseball, that the Negro Leagues would finally be recognized as major leagues, and all those who played on Negro League teams would be recognized as major league ball players. If you're unfamiliar with baseball, this might sound a lot like nothing, so let us explain.
Professional baseball is split into a bunch of different leagues at different levels of competition, ranging from rookie ball that plays a short season all the way up to the MLB, which comprises the National and American leagues as the majors. The Negro Leagues were, up until last year, not considered a major league, implying that the teams and those who played in the Negro Leagues were less than the MLB. Certainly in playing ability, but in importance too. And that's pretty common for how the Negro Leagues have been viewed for the last 100 years. Not quite as worthy of study or celebration as the white leagues.
That's obviously changing now, and that's great news because the history of Negro League Baseball isn't just a sports story. It's a remarkably human story that reflects American history so well. The Negro Leagues are worthy of remembering, are worthy as a subject of discussion, and are obviously totally worthy counting their stats against the other guys. So let's check out our favorite reasons why the Negro Leagues matter. Or, alternatively, what we think are the 7 coolest facts about Negro League Baseball.
Hit that ball.
The Negro Leagues beat all other baseball leagues to playing night games by inventing these weird portable lighting systems. Okay, so playing games at night is like a huge thing when it comes to baseball history. People get really upset about it. There was this weird hang-up for a long time about only playing baseball during the day, with Hall of Famer Ernie Banks saying in 2008,
I play all my home games under one light, and that's God's light.
And I just don't get it, but I did buy the t-shirt when I went to a Cubs game this summer. Especially with Wrigley Field in Chicago, people get weird. Wrigley didn't even get stadium lights until 1988, 40 long years after they were standard in all other ballparks.
That was over 100 years after the very first night game, which happened on a beach in Hull, Massachusetts, all the way back in 1880, just 1 year after the invention of the light bulb. The teams playing that game were members of 2 different lighting companies, which was really common at the time. Corporations would field a team with their company name on the jerseys and employees for players. But that game was really just an advertisement for electric lights. The first professional games under lights happened because of the Kansas City Monarchs, one of the coolest teams in all of Negro League's history.
The Depression absolutely raised the amount of spending money and time that people in America had. Despite winning the league championship that year, the Kansas City Monarchs never sold fewer tickets than in 1929. Since necessity is the mother of invention, Monarchs owner J.L. Wilkinson decided to try to create a way for people to go see baseball games at night. That way the weather could be cooler and people would be able to go after they got off work for the day. Wilkinson mortgaged pretty much everything he owned to build a portable lighting system. The thing was a beast that cost between $500,000 and $1 million in today's money, standing 50 feet above the field and guzzling 15 gallons of gas every hour, with a noisy whirring generator just over the center field fence. Since the lights were only 50 feet up, any fly ball hit above them just disappeared into the darkened night sky until it came back down. So they had to impose a new limit to the number of bases a batter could take if he hit a pop fly.
It was a huge hit, though. The first night game using the portable setup happened April 28, 1930, between the Monarchs and Phillips University. During day games, it would be considered a good crowd if 3,000 people showed up, but with night games, the attendance could swell to 12 or 15,000. The Monarchs rented out their lights to other teams, making sure that they could pay their bills. They even delayed the start of their season so that other teams could use the lights for an entire month before the Monarchs ever would. The team bus was retrofitted to carry those lights, and instead, the players traveled in cars.
According to Negro League Baseball Museum president Bob Kendrick, Wilkinson wasn't into night baseball for the innovation. He was doing it for survival. And he was looking for a way to get working class fans to the ballpark. Night baseball became the answer. More than 5 years later, President Franklin D. Roosevelt pushed the button to illuminate a Cincinnati Reds game on May 24, 1935, for the first MLB night game, with many modern fans never knowing that the Negro Leagues had already been using lights for half a decade.
Did you see Jackie Robinson hit that ball?
The Negro Leagues were the place to go if you wanted to watch baseball and just didn't care about a player's race. But you could also go to the Negro Leagues to see players who weren't men. Multiple women played in the Negro Leagues, notably Toni Stone, Mamie Johnson, and Connie Morgan. Toni Stone had been playing semi-pro ball for years and even lied about her age to make herself seem younger, but she got her shot at the Negro Leagues in 1953, playing for her childhood favorite team, the Indianapolis Clowns.
Toni Stone was a badass. She was ready to play real baseball, and when she signed to the Indianapolis Clowns, her manager suggested she wear a skirt on the field, like the All-American Girls Professional Baseball League, a league of their own. She said, "This is professional baseball," and then wore the same uniform as the rest of the team. She told reporters, "I know what I'm doing and what I'm in for. I don't want anyone playing me easy because I'm a woman, and I don't plan to play easy against them. I'm out here to play the game, and I'm sure I can take the knocks as well as anyone else."
Now, team signing women players was primarily a business decision. They wanted to see if the crowds would turn out to see the novelty of women on the field. But the historical evidence that we have suggests that they were pretty good players. Record keeping in the Negro Leagues was really spotty. It's kind of hard to hold up stats for a one-to-one comparison, but it seems like Toni Stone was a pretty solid second baseman, and even got a hit off the greatest ever pitcher, Satchel Paige, which Toni considered the happiest moment of her entire life. Supposedly, she had a .302 average for her 1953 season at the age of 32. Had she entered pro ball earlier, who knows what she could have accomplished. Toni later played for the Kansas City Monarchs, same team as Jackie Robinson, though Jackie had integrated the MLB by then.
Mamie Peanut Johnson was a pitcher who played for the Clowns after Toni. According to Peanut, her curveball was learned from Satchel Paige himself. Peanut got her nickname after striking out a batter who asked how you strike someone out when you're no bigger than a peanut. Connie Morgan, another player, played 5 seasons with the Philadelphia Honey Drippers, great name, bringing in a .368 batting average before getting her shot at the Negro Leagues, where she replaced Toni in the Clowns lineup. Jackie Robinson was impressed with Toni's skill, saying, "That girl's really got it. She throws, hits, and fields like no girl I've ever seen." On opening day that year, she ran the ball down for what a reporter called a sensational stop, flipping the ball to the shortstop for a dazzling double play against the Birmingham Barons.
Unfortunately, being a woman in the Negro Leagues was extremely difficult. All 3 women faced harassment and constant second-guessing of their skills on the field. When the novelty of women in baseball wore off a bit and ticket sales waned, all 3 women left the league by 1955. And no other women suited up for any Negro League teams afterwards. Between Toni, Peanut, Connie, and shrewd, interesting team owners like Effa Manley, there are a lot of women-focused stories in the Negro Leagues for all of us to dig up.
Also, while we're talking about women in baseball, go check out the Women's Baseball World Cup. Women playing baseball didn't end with the death of the Negro Leagues or the All-American Girls League. It's still going on. Specifically, check out Japan's pitcher Ayami Sato, who throws 80 and has a completely knockout curve. She's probably the best female pitcher in the world.
Did you see Jackie Robinson hit that ball?
The Negro Leagues were organized very loosely. Because of this, it gave teams a chance to essentially go on tour, inviting other clubs to play baseball and to bring the sport to towns and cities where people might otherwise not get a chance to see any professional baseball at all. Black players began barnstorming as early as the 1880s. This wasn't just a Negro Leagues thing. Sometimes white baseball teams would do it in the off-season to make extra money, and there were even Native American teams and religious groups who barnstormed. At the Negro League Southern Museum, there's a letter asking a team if they would like to play a game on the upcoming tour, including logistics like their monetary guarantee.
Players were frequently away from home for months at a time. playing tiny towns across America, and sometimes squeezing the whole team into one hotel room at night to save on costs. And while barnstorming could take the form of some pretty grueling, long, hot days on the bus, it didn't have to. Bud Fowler's team, the All-American Black Tourists, rented out their own rail car to barnstorm in style, which makes sense because the team always played in suits and formal wear.
Of course, the black players dealt with racism in most places, with some players saying they had to stick to black neighborhoods to get their fair shake, and when it came to food, Satchel Paige said, "We had to go in the colored neighborhood if we wanted anything hot at all. If there was no colored in the town or no colored restaurant, then we went to the grocery store again for bologna sausage." The teams became experts at using humor to deflate tense situations by doing things like batting one-handed or hitting on their knees. They would neglect to keep score as to not embarrass the home team. Satchel Paige would throw his warm-up pitches sitting down with the catcher in a rocking chair. Speaking of Satchel Paige, nobody barnstormed as much as him.
Kansas City, Jackie Robinson hit that ball.
Satchel Paige was fucking awesome. That is all.
Kansas City, Jackie.
No, but seriously, he was such an interesting guy. Satchel barnstormed year-round, making the claim that he pitched for over 250 different teams over the course of his career. He would make as much as $500 for pitching 3 innings in an exhibition game. According to him, he logged 30,000 miles a year on the road and saw more of America than any baseball player. He was also good at baseball. Like, really good.
Let's remind ourselves that the Negro League stat keeping was uneven, but pretty much all of the evidence we have suggests that Satchel Paige was absolutely one of the best pitchers to ever play. Nolan Ryan, the player who technically holds the record for most no-hitters thrown in a career, threw 7. It's impossible to confirm entirely because of the record keeping, but it's estimated that Satchel Paige threw 55 no-hitters. He had a wild wind-up, and players who worked with him said that Paige knew pretty much everything there was to know about baseball. When Negro League teams came through town with Satchel on the roster, they consistently outsold white teams playing on the same day, despite the fact that they weren't major leaguers. Joe DiMaggio even called Satch the best I've ever faced and the fastest.
Satchel Paige was a funny guy, too. He sometimes had his infielders sit down behind him because he was so confident that he could strike his batter out. And it worked. Satch claimed that he once pitched 62 consecutive scoreless innings and that he won 104 out of 105 games in 1934. One time when pitching for a high school team, he felt so bad that he'd been mowing down opponents, so he just let 2 of them get on base. Then he straightened up and immediately went back to retiring batter after batter. On off days when he would pitch freelance, he would even wear his own uniform with Satchel on the front in place of the team's name.
Shortly after Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947, becoming the first black player in the National or American leagues, Satchel Paige became the first black player to pitch in the newly integrated majors. He made his debut on July 9th, 1948 for the Cleveland Guardians, then known as the Cleveland Indians, and at the age of 42, becoming the oldest rookie in MLB history, a record that still stands. Paige played most of his integrated games out of the bullpen, and he pitched well, though his Hall of Fame dominance was behind him.
Of his age, Satch said, "Age is a question of mind over matter. If you don't mind, it doesn't matter." When he pitched 3 innings for the Kansas City Athletics, later the Oakland Athletics, at the age of 59 in 1965, he became the oldest pitcher to ever play a game in the majors. The oldest player in baseball right now is Albert Pujols, who, at 41, is a full 18 years younger than Satch was when he pitched that game. By the best guess of the professionals, Satch tossed a 2.36 ERA with 1,500 career strikeouts. In 1971, he became the first player inducted to the Baseball Hall of Fame for his Negro League record.
Kansas City, Jackie Robinson hit that ball.
You often hear about Jackie Robinson, who broke baseball's color barrier. You don't often hear about are the players who came very shortly after. Some of them signed just months after Jackie. Of course, Jackie wanted to make sure that while he was first, he wasn't last. After signing with Brooklyn, he said, "I hope to make good and open the way for others in my race to do likewise." Branch Rickey signed Jackie Robinson to the Brooklyn Dodgers on April 15th, 1947. But by July 5th, 1947, just 81 days later, Cleveland's owner and then president Bill Veeck signed Larry Doby. I mean, maybe you're a bigger baseball fan than I am, but when was the last time you heard anyone talk about Larry Doby? He just doesn't get brought up that much.
Like Branch Rickey's search for Jackie, Bill Veeck was trying to find a player who had the skill to compete for his team, but also had the fortitude to withstand the absolute deluge of blowback from racist crowds. And Doby was Veeck's guy. He even paid for the purchasing rights to his contract off of Effa Manley's Newark Eagles. Branch Rickey didn't do that for Jackie.
Doby was a really solid player who had been hitting .415 with 14 home runs for the Eagles when he was retrieved from the Eagles' dugout mid-game. He and a public relations manager for Cleveland picked him up and rode the train with him to Chicago, where he joined his new team the very next day. Veeck wanted to control how crowds were introduced to Doby, so with no major announcement or anything like that, Doby made his major league debut unexpectedly by pinch hitting in the 7th inning. The welcome he received from his new white teammates was icy, and the second baseman Joe Gordon was the only one who would play catch with him to warm up. As a more charming side note, Doby and Gordon became lifelong close friends after that.
Unfortunately, it was still 1947, and it was still Cleveland, the team that held onto their racist name and logo with an iron grip until the year of our Lord 2021, so Larry Doby did not join his teammates at the Del Prado Hotel downtown that night. Instead, he had to sleep at the DuSable Hotel on Chicago's South Side that night. That established a precedent that followed Doby for most of his playing career.
The next day, on July 6th, Cleveland played a doubleheader against the White Sox, and Doby started the second game at first base, for which he actually lacked a proper first baseman's glove. The glove he ended up using in the game was borrowed from a player on the opposing White Sox. Doby found his footing, moving from infield to center, and eventually hit a .370 average in 1949 and was elected to the All-Star game that same year.
Quickly following Jackie and Doby into the newly integrated leagues were Hank Thompson and Willard Brown, signed to the St. Louis Browns less than 2 weeks after Doby, Dan Bankhead in August of '47, and then Minnie Minoso, Don Newcomb, and all-time greats Roy Campanella and Satchel Paige joined by the end of 1949. Side note, the Red Sox were the last team to integrate, not signing a black player until Pumpsie Green joined the team in 1959, a full 12 years after Jackie broke the color barrier. Side note, Pumpsie Green is the most delightful old-timey baseball name I've ever heard.
In the street, Jackie Robinson hit that ball.
Charley Pride is one of our favorite country singers. He's one of the top-selling country artists from the 60s and the 70s, and he's in the Country Music Hall of Fame. But we didn't even know that he was a Negro leaguer until people were celebrating him after he died of COVID complications in 2020. Charley was a pitcher who was discovered while playing with the Sandlot team and then signed with the Memphis Red Sox.
According to his contemporaries, Charley had a pretty good little curve, and then had a stint with the Yankees farm team from Boise. After injuring his arm in a way that caused him to lose some mustard on his fastball, he was traded to the Birmingham Black Barons. The Black Barons are the team that would eventually just become the Birmingham Barons, the team that Michael Jordan would play on when he dropped basketball for baseball. It's unconfirmed, but Charley claims that he and another player, Jesse Mitchell, were traded to the Barons for a team bus, saying, "Jesse and I may have the distinction of being the only players in history to be traded for a used motor vehicle."
Charley bopped around to a couple of different teams and a couple of different leagues while simultaneously working construction jobs until a manager noticed how good of a singer he was. The manager paid him $10 to sing before games, which effectively doubled his pay for the team. For a while, Charley was working at a smelter, playing music at night, and playing baseball once a week. By 1966, he had earned a contract with RCA and became the best-selling artist since Elvis. Charley always considered music his backup career, and Bob Kendrick of the Negro League Museum always tells guests that we should all have a fallback career just like Charley.
Charley loved baseball all his life. frequently attending spring training for the Texas Rangers and even working out with the team. In 2008, during an event where each MLB team drafted a lesser-known Negro League player, the Rangers picked up Charley, and our hometown Rockies picked up his little brother, Mac.
Jackie Robinson hit that ball.
The hardest part about putting this video together was choosing which facts and stories to include in a way that wouldn't make this video just 9 hours long. As we continued to research, we constantly found interesting stories that we had never heard before. Each one reminding us of how much we love baseball and what an interesting past it has.
But baseball has marked the time.
But sitting at your computer or reading a book is way less cool than seeing it all yourself, which we also did at the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum in Kansas City, Missouri this summer.
Between the opening video narrated by James Earl Jones, the retro flannel jerseys and hats in each locker, and the countless stories of self-determination and sportsmanship and knockout sliders, it is 100% worth the trip.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
Our favorite piece was the Field of Legends at the center of the museum, where you can stand next to Satchel Paige, Cool Papa Bell, Buck Leonard, and Josh Gibson.
They have Buck O'Neill's Presidential Medal of Freedom, 200 signed baseballs donated by Geddy Lee from Rush, and a great gift shop where you can buy replica jerseys from teams like the Clowns. Additionally, the Negro League Southern Museum in Birmingham, Alabama is also very cool, and it's even free to enter.
Our favorite types of stories from history are the ones that stir us from the inside. Stories of people doing Herculean things to overcome staggering adversity and make the world just a little bit better. Stories like those are the ones that make us proud of our history, while at the same time keeping in mind the hurt caused by the past as well. The Negro League Museum is full of stories like that. The Negro Leagues deserve to be remembered, so give the museum a go if you've got a few extra hours in KC, and spend some time in America's mythology and with some of its heroes.
If you've got a favorite fact or player from the Negro Leagues, drop it down below in the comments. Happy October. We'll see you on the field. Anybody but the